everyone. Welcome to AdvocateHub class. My name is Heather, and today we're going to be talking about using AdvocateHub to onboard your new customers. So we also have a special guest joining us. We have Dom from Adobe EchoSign joining us, and he actually has used the AdvocateHub to implement an onboarding solution for his team. So we're going to talk first about why you would use AdvocateHub for onboarding. We're going to talk about sort of what you want to keep in mind when that's happening. We're going to talk a little bit about how we do it at Influitive. As you know, most of you guys have gone through this onboarding process with us, so we use Influitive VIP as part of our onboarding experience. Then Dom is going to talk about what they do at Adobe EchoSign. So after that, we have questions. Now, usually we do about 2 minutes of questions. Today, we want to hear lots and lots and lots of questions. Dom is looking to get lots of questions and feedback on his story about the way he does onboarding. I know a lot of you have mentioned that you are interested in also using AdvocateHub for onboarding. So any thoughts, questions, ideas, feedback you guys have to pass on to us, send it through in the chat, and we will definitely have lots of time towards the end to answer all of those questions. So put extra thought into coming up with questions, and we will have time to take care of all of those today. The other thing, just a quick housekeeping note, we encourage all of you to bring a friend today, and if you brought a friend, then we would give your friend a Starbucks perk so that you guys could go get a coffee together and chat about all the awesome things you learned. So I just have a little poll here, and what I'd like you guys to do is if you've brought a friend to class with you, if you could just type in what their email address is and then just click submit. That way I can make sure that they get their invitation to Influitive VIP where they can collect their perk. So if your friend already has an Influitive VIP account, you don't need to worry about this. But if they are new, if you could just go ahead and type in their email address, just so we can track who's new and make sure everyone gets their just desserts, as I guess emphasis on the desserts. Just give you a couple more seconds for that. Okay, so we're going to proceed. So first of all, I thought it would be important to just talk about why is onboarding important. I'm assuming that all of you do this already at your company, and essentially onboarding is about introducing your customers to your product, to your team, and ensuring that your customers are able to adopt your solution into their workflow or adopt your tool or whatever it may be. So I found this kind of cool, I guess, chart that shows that the onboarding process basically lines up with the adoption process, and hopefully if everything goes swimmingly, then it leads to renewal and possibly even upsell. So so the idea is you want to make your onboarding process as smooth and as wonderful as possible in order to make your customers' experience with your team, your service, your product as awesome as possible as well. So why is AdvocateHub useful in this process? First of all, and this is something that we throw around a lot at Influitive, but there's actually studies that say this, that the moment at which someone becomes a new customer is the moment at which they're most likely to advocate for you. So the moment is, the relationship is fresh. They've just come out of the sales cycle. They're very excited about your product. They're excited about your solution. They've just signed the contract. They're sort of raring to go. There's sort of a level of enthusiasm at this point in the relationship that sets your customer up well to become an advocate if you kind of capitalize on that good feeling. So a couple sort of more to the point reasons for using AdvocateHub for onboarding. Number one, it's a scalable solution, and we'll hear a little bit from Dom talking about that later. You can use it as an education tool. When you're getting your customers to adopt your new product, education is a key element of that. You can use the AdvocateHub to facilitate mentoring. You can use it to get feedback. And you can use it as a way to reward your users at different adoption checkpoints. So you might sort of already do some of these things as part of your existing onboarding, but using the AdvocateHub as a way to sort of make that more fun and then to translate the relationship you can build at that stage into a more long-term relationship. So what you really want to do is make your customer relationship resilient by making them part of your community. You don't want to just have this touch point at the moment they're onboarding, and then, okay, they're onboarded, you don't talk to them anymore, or maybe you do, but it's not as on a regular of a basis. Doing it this way, onboarding your customers through the AdvocateHub, sets up that relationship with them and the platform and the community, and really makes them have a better connection to your team and what you guys do. So as I said, you want your customer to have a regular touch point with your team. So Chad, who runs customer success here at Influitive, used to run customer success at Eloqua. And the one thing, and Eloqua has an AdvocateHub. And Chad often says that the reason he loved the AdvocateHub when he was there and he was running customer success is that he found out the AdvocateHub played cover for those customers who he wasn't necessarily talking to. So new customers, maybe customers who are having trouble, customers, there are just, you guys know, I think, that there are certain customers you're always talking to a little bit more. And then you kind of have some other customers that are doing really well. They like the product, but they sort of fade into the background. And having an AdvocateHub for the advocates while they're onboarding and also beyond onboarding is a really great way to ensure that those customers still feel loved. They're still getting that attention. So it's really playing cover for those customers who aren't looking for attention because they're having a great experience with your product, and maybe they don't need to reach out to your customer success team, or maybe they don't need to reach out to, let's say, your support team or something like that. They're just kind of floating along. They're happy the way things are. That's really good, but you want to make sure that those users also are getting the same level of attention. So how do you make onboarding with your AdvocateHub happen? I know a few of you said that you're thinking about taking on this process. So what are sort of the next steps once you start thinking about this? Like, what should you be doing? So first of all, there's a few sort of step-by-step things you can do. So you want to really understand the step-by-step onboarding process that currently exists. So these are just some different questions that you can ask. And asking these questions, getting the answers is going to sort of set you up for a good way to build out how you would implement this solution. So first of all, you want to understand who's involved. What are the customer touch points? What are the steps taken for both parties? What's the end goal of onboarding, and what happens beyond that? So we'll go a little deeper here. First of all, we're asking who's involved. You want to find out who on your team is involved in the onboarding process. A, you don't want to step on any toes. B, these people need to be involved in the decision and also the implementation. You need to understand the AdvocateHub, and they're often the best situated to sort of pinpoint where there's room to change the existing process to either improve it or make it a little bit more scalable. So again, what are the customer touch points? And what are the steps taken on both sides? So what is your team doing in the onboarding process? What is the customer doing? And what are the customers sort of internally doing as part of the onboarding process? So asking these questions, really sitting down with the people who are in charge of onboarding at your company, it's a good spot to identify space for the AdvocateHub's integration. And you can ask, can any of these touch points be replaced with or enhanced by a challenge in the AdvocateHub, or with a perk or a badge or something like that? So what are we doing right now, and how can the AdvocateHub kind of fit into that experience? So also, what is the end goal of onboarding? So as onboarding the process of onboarding, the whole point is to get your customer to adopt your product or your solution or your service. But what is sort of the internal flow of that at your company? When you introduce someone for onboarding, is the goal for them, for example, at Influitive, the goal is to get your customers, to get you guys to launch your hub. So that's a goal that we're sort of working towards, and all of our steps fall in line with that. With your company, the flow could be different. You're trying to maybe get your customer to a different point. Maybe different customers are working in a different flow. So it's important to understand what's the point of onboarding. What are you trying to help your customer work towards when you're onboarding them? And that will help you figure out what kind of activities you want to create in the AdvocateHub to be a part of this process. And then the last thing is, what happens post-onboarding? Is there anything that the customer does after that? Is there a point when the onboarding process stops? Are there regular checkpoints after the sort of initial early onboarding steps? This is really about understanding what are the milestones throughout the onboarding process, and how can you commemorate or mark or notice or pay attention to or sort of celebrate those milestones within the AdvocateHub. As it is a gamification tool, you can sort of use it to give rewards, to give perks, badges, that type of stuff. And this is something that you can really do well with the AdvocateHub by understanding the flow and the goals and the milestones of your current company's customer onboarding experience. So how do we do it at Influitive? First of all, when a new customer is signed, they immediately are entered into our sort of process, and there's a whole list of different activities. So they're given an invitation to join Influitive VIP. And as they complete all the various tasks associated with setting up an AdvocateHub, with learning more about the tool, with connecting with their team internally, challenges are presented around checkpoints for the onboarding process. When a checkpoint is reached, the advocate can complete that challenge saying, hey, yes, I did this, and then badges, prizes, points, all that stuff come out of that flow. So this is a screenshot of what the homepage looks like, highlighting the onboarding challenges for Influitive. So you can see there's different challenges asking, hey, have you launched your AdvocateHub? Have you created badges? Have you created more than 10 challenges? Just tweet it up. You started onboarding with us. For Influitive, part of what we're doing is we want to teach our customers how to use our product. And so this sort of works out in two ways, in that we're teaching people how to use AdvocateHub as they're also sort of checking in with this onboarding experience to say, hey, yeah, I did do this thing. But certainly if you offer some sort of different tool or service, these challenges saying, hey, have you done this yet, or have you done that yet, this is getting your customers to check in and say, hey, yeah, I did do this thing that I was supposed to do as part of my onboarding process. And these types of challenges can be created sort of regardless of what you're onboarding your customers to do. So I am going to hand the reins over to Dom now, and he is going to go ahead and talk about how they did this at Adobe EchoSign. So Dom, it's over to you.
Awesome. Thanks. Appreciate that, Heather. Thanks, everyone, for sharing some of your time with me to hear how we do things with Influitive and the onboarding process, and I'm looking forward to getting your guys' feedback as this progresses. I'm going to start by saying apologize for any background noise. I'm at a conference. I was supposed to get a conference room. It doesn't get quiet. That didn't happen, so I'm in a hallway. It's pretty quiet, so again, sorry in advance. There's background noise. So my background at Adobe EchoSign, I was a manager of the enterprise client success team. So that encompassed onboarding at that time, retention, upsell, references, customer events, all of the above. So it was the whole life cycle of the customer post-sale, and also bled into the pre-sales process, but that was a one-off. And our product helps our customers streamline scale onboarding, but EchoSign needed a solution. So what we need is a solution to help them do the same. What we do with EchoSign is we streamline workflows for documents being signed, so it's for sales, HR, legal, procurement. EchoSign streamlines processes for document workflows. And it's one of the things we were looking for with Influitive is something to streamline our onboarding. So building some scalability, that was a big piece of it. So that the customers could have the same experience and something that we could scale, measure, and improve on. So considerations when onboarding. So different customers use EchoSign differently. And what that means to me, for my customers, is our product, you can buy EchoSign and install it in your Salesforce environment, or you can integrate it using API to your systems, or you can just log into EchoSign.com and use EchoSign. So what that means is that there's unique tracks or unique curriculums that need to be built out for the use cases that our customers are buying for. And I found that Influitive's grouping mechanism, so allowing you to create curriculums by group, create custom invite URLs, and distribute those based on data that's included in the selling process for the sales reps, streamline the initial touch points for the customer so we can get them the information they need quickly and hit the ground running. And in addition, for complexity, not all customers are created equal. Some customers are enterprise, some customers are mid-market, and some customers are small, so we needed to define touch points and automate that as well within the onboarding process. Next slide, please. So how onboarding works with Influitive. Like I said, when a net new customer, their first opportunity is closed, we require that the sales rep flag the type of integration that they're going to be using EchoSign for the initial use case, and that determines which welcome email template gets sent out. And for that welcome email template, it's going to include the Influitive specific group that's going to contain the curriculum for the onboarding use case. So for a Salesforce customer, the welcome URL that's going to be in that welcome email is going to include the Salesforce training curriculum. And even more granular, if it's an enterprise customer, they're going to get a different curriculum than compared to a small business customer. For from a high level, we're trying to approach onboarding from small businesses, as much of hands-off approach as possible, to mid-market, which is some hand-holding dependent on how engaged they are in the onboarding process, and then enterprise, which is white glove. They get all the resources they need for the onboarding. And one of the ways that we try to enable the customers to progress through training curriculums is through the badges. So first thing we want them to do when they come into EchoSign's Influitive for onboarding is watch a tour of EchoSign. What resources are available? So we use a Brainshark video, embed that URL in a challenge, have them watch that video, which earns them a badge, which then unlocks additional challenges or curriculums, I like to call it, for my new customers. And here is a screenshot of some challenges, and as many of you are aware, the little flames next to the type of challenge name is for priority, so we want those raised to the top. So branding is a big piece for new customers. So again, coming back to understanding what the onboarding process is for customers, what we know from talking to customers that they need to do initially to hit the ground running. And one of them is upload your logo. The other part is this is an API integration. So we use SOAP UI, and we also have REST now. But are you familiar with SOAP? If you're not familiar with SOAP, well, here's some documentation for you to look at. And also, I guess the Salesforce app one, which I'm assuming, hopefully that's not in there. That would be a gaffe. The install the EchoSign for Salesforce app shouldn't be mixed with the SOAP UI. But if it is, I'll go back and fix that. Because that's another good thing. I can quickly adjust what curriculum is exposed to groups. So having that control and the quick fixes is great. And quick additions is also phenomenal for us. So this is a key piece. So when they advance through the challenges, earn badges, which is linked to our Salesforce every time they complete 3 onboarding Tier 1 challenges, we track that and upgrade the status in our Salesforce environment. So I can track how each customer is progressing through the onboarding process, which means if there's a lag between advancements in the onboarding statuses, I can reach out programmatically, an email that's automated, or with a phone call, depending on the tier of the customer, with segment, enterprise, mid-market, or small business. So integrating AdvocateHub into the onboarding workflow. So the activity in AdvocateHub advances the customer status in Salesforce, which I mentioned. It was very important to me as I built the process out to be able to understand where customers are dropping out of the onboarding process. That way we can interject a manual conversation, a one-to-one. And as I'm sure many of you are as well, first 90 days of a customer's experience with business is a key indicator whether or not they're going to be staying a customer long-term. So having granularity as to when we're losing those customers in the process, if we are losing them, knowing that, being able to track that, being able to automate off of that as much as possible. Again, it's really huge for us in our small business approach because we're trying to scale from thousands of customers to hundreds of thousands of customers in the small business segment. So automation is huge for us. So the status determines when some customers meet their customer success manager. So this is more specific to the mid-market. So take, for example, a mid-market customer for us. So but we want them to have some interaction with the client success manager or the onboarding team. And that's driven by, they get the welcome email, new customer. Within the welcome email is going to have their invitation URL to the Influitive group. Within that Influitive, once they've registered and they're within the hub, they're going to watch that video for tour of EchoSign so they get to see what's available for them for resources. As soon as that challenge is completed, they click done. We record that in Salesforce. That data is automatically pushed to our Salesforce environment, which changes the status from onboarding start to onboarding tier 1. And for that tier of customer, mid-market, we're automating an email with our onboarding team members' time trade link. Time trade is an application which allows customers to schedule appointment directly with the person's calendar. So we put the control in the customer's hands. You've done this, you watched the video, here's another way for you to get some one-on-one attention. Great. So what's great about that is it gives them another avenue to get one-on-one support, as well as keep them in the hub as far as being able to complete a challenge, earn a badge, be exposed more curriculum to continue on the onboarding process so that by the time they're on the phone call with the onboarding manager, they've done the basics, and we can really dive into the workflow challenges that have driven them to sign up to be an EchoSign customer. So a really important, huge part for us was being able to control how far the customer can advance themselves down the onboarding track before needing to talk to somebody to do the hand-holding. It really should be intuitive within the application, and if it's not intuitive in the application, is why we have the Influitive challenges to highlight it, to add a user, upload your logo, make your first send, run your first report, do those very basic things that you should be able to familiarize yourself with. So scalable hands-off onboarding. This allows scalable hands-off onboarding. So mid-market customers, like I've mentioned, meet the CSM in their first call, which is triggered by the completed advocacy activities, which is that first video they watch. And small businesses meet their CSM well into the customer lifecycle. So ideally, a small business customer will have their account within the first 10 days sending more than 10 agreements, and that's all variable depending on how small a small business is. If it's a 5-person business, they could send 2 agreements in a week, and that's great for them. So we want them to be set up and running and using the solution. We're tracking how many agreements they're sending, how long they've been a customer, how much they're partaking in the self-help, self-paced, Influitive onboarding training curriculum. And then once they've completed the onboarding track, we'll transition them to the small business CSM team so that they can get the escalation issues if they want to expand into another use case, if they have a billing question, if they have a renewal coming up. So we'll be able to give them those resources after they've been onboarded. So how our team decided to do this. I don't know, is there another slide after this that talks about that, or should I just talk about that? What's the next slide? Because this is a really important part. Great. So this is a really important piece.
I don't have any more.
Awesome. Thanks, Heather. So this is a really important aspect for us is to, prior to using Influitive, we use a round-robin approach for onboarding in the client success organization. So whoever, sorry for some background noise coming, whoever's turn was next in the round-robin to onboard a customer, they were going to inherit the customer, onboard them, as well as manage the existing customer base that they're responsible for the upsell, the renewal, the on-site meetings, the QBRs. So this is just a really full plate. And to get the onboarding wrong was a huge gap. We can't have that happen. So by bringing this into a very focused group, very focused efforts, and dedicating to one technology around a backbone for building out curriculums, it really gave us an opportunity to understand from the customer's feedback what they needed for the onboarding, put that in a self-content, that they could consume the content on their own. We can deliver new content, and really what's a cool factor for me is that every new customer that comes through to EchoSign is going to get the Influitive invitation. They are going to not only go through onboarding with Influitive, but they're going to get dumped into our general AdvocateHub so that they can be an advocate of ours long term. So it's that natural flow from the beginning, middle, and end of the customer's advocacy. So it was a really big value add for me to be able to sell that as well. Not only are we going to have them on the initial onboarding, it's very focused efforts, but then we can get them off into the more senior marketing hands to get them as a real advocate of our solution and participate in all the other challenges that will be created. So I don't know how we're doing on time, and I know I covered a lot of our own secret sauce on how we kind of figured out how to do things. Anything I can use, Heather, you think I can stop and go back on?
For you.
Yeah.
No, you've done really well, but I have 2 more slides. We can go through them really quickly. Actually, I'm just going to skip to the very last one.
Yeah, so 5 things to keep in mind when integrating AdvocateHub with your onboarding process. So some key learnings from my experience. First is to really take the time to nail down what you're currently doing for an onboarding process and what you envision yourself doing long term. So that includes all the things that you'd like to integrate. So a big part of me was I got this challenge, I get the authority to go fix the problem, so I'm going to work at a pace that's going to keep my manager pushed. I'm going to ask for things that they're not going to want to give me, but I'm going to keep myself on the front foot and make sure that my management and the teams that rely on the customer being onboarded know that we're being progressive and we're going to push for things that are a little bit out of reach, but would be really cool to have. So that was a really big thing to be able to identify in the beginning, so that way we could focus on the customer experience and then build around that the infrastructure, what we're going to deliver for the customer. The second thing to keep in mind when integrating with the AdvocateHub is you're going to put all this effort into understanding workflows, all this effort into understanding the customer's experience. So you got all these other groups that are going to have to buy in and be part of it. And most significant point towards the sales teams, because it's a big culture change for them to change away from being able to say you'd have a one-on-one dedicated client success manager to handle you through the onboarding process to, hey, you're going to get an email and you're going to go through this process, and if you have an issue, if there's a one-off, raise your flag, we'll help you out. But we'd really prefer you to go through this onboarding process because we've found from customer feedback it's going to enable you to hit the ground running quicker. And if you have questions or one-offs, we're happy to help you, but just go through the process of the onboarding curriculum. And I say that's a big learning for me because we showed the sales team how it works. We've done demos. I think if we'd have taken an extra week and made every sales rep go through the process, then I think there would have been a quicker uptick as far as customers using the solution. So after I did my training with the sales team, it was great to hear that some of the sales reps were post-sale, got the deal signed, staying on the phone with the customer, and walking them through the challenges while they're on the phone with them. So they were taking some of the workload off of our backs, which is great because they're excited about new technology and how it's going to deliver a neat, cool experience to their customers as they renew. So it's extending out beyond just what we do to more of a broad, hey, this is cool, this is interesting, this is different, let's continue to embrace it. A third thing I'd say keep in mind is it's unless you've got a whole lot of time and a whole lot of runway to get this set up properly, you're going to get a lot of it wrong. Some of the messaging is going to be wrong. Some of the challenges you think were the right fit are not going to be the right fit. I would say take block time out maybe a day or two after you've launched. 1 or 2 days, block them out, maybe 2 weeks after launch, a month after launch, 3 months after launch, to really sit down and look at your materials, your challenges again, and really comb through to see how effective they are getting customers through your onboarding process. And we're in the process of revisiting it again, and it's a great time to revisit it. It's going to allow us to really pare it down. So a fourth thing I would say is I put all these statuses and tiers and ways to just measure the customer's process, but they don't really, as a customer, unless you explicitly tell them what the process is, they really get lost into just having something there and not knowing that as they progress through it, kind of like a health bar, you're 50% through, they'll lose interest. So I would say another learning of mine would be flatten out the amount of tiers or logic unlocks that you embed into your onboarding tracks. It's give them the information they need, and you can track it through just by challenge type names. So I would, as I go back through, I'm going to reduce the amount of logic I've built into the badges. I think it's super helpful, and I've learned a lot using it, but I would say that'd be a pretty big key learning from my perspective. I would say those are the most important.
Okay, awesome.
From my perspective.
Cool. So let's take some questions. If anyone has questions, I'd love if you guys would just type them into the chat window. Are any of you thinking of doing this? What kind of questions have you guys come up against when thinking about implementing this solution? Are you guys even able to identify who is in charge of the onboarding? I know a lot of you have tried to bring someone today who is responsible for the onboarding. Maybe if we could even hear from some of those people, what do you guys think about this? Like, does this seem like something that would be possible at your company, that you guys could sort of implement? Okay, so I have one question here from Kimberly. She's asking, what are some onboarding challenges we need to be sure that we are including? I would say that education challenges are a really key element of that. Dom, would you agree?
Yeah, I would. And one thing also is to stop and think about what it is, what's the most important thing that you need a new customer to experience so that they get jazzed about what being a new customer is. So they've been sold what is onboard, what your product does through the sales process, and that's a high. That's probably a high for them, is being able to latch onto that, but then reinforce that with the onboarding curriculum or onboarding tracks. Like if the simplicity for us, for in our terms, the simplicity of getting a document signed is a big thing for us. So I'm thinking about going back in and making one of the initial challenges, sign something sent to EchoSign. So as soon as they sign up, maybe I'll build some logic to automatically send them an agreement to sign, and that triggers something within the onboarding track to tie back in. So I would say that's one of the key initial challenges, to keep the momentum high as to why they bought and build on that. And don't lose sight of that, because that's a pretty important momentum and driver for the onboarding experience. They'll remember it, and keeping track of those highs.
I definitely think that's a really good answer. So the next question I have is from Erica, asking if there's going to be a recording of this session. There is. We're recording right now, and either later tonight or early tomorrow, I will send out to everyone a recording of this along with some notes on what we've been talking about here today. So the next question is from Carlos, who wants to know, does every new customer get invited to the AdvocateHub to onboard, and after onboarding, are they expected to be an advocate? I think, as I'll answer the second part, and then Dom, I'll let you talk about the first part. So after onboarding, I think that customers can be invited to be advocates, or certainly they're in the system, so opportunities to advocate would be presented to them. And I think that an experience like this, where you have this sort of like do-it-yourself flow where it's kind of a game, I think if that's done well and it presents a really positive experience to your new customer, I think naturally they're going to want to advocate for you. I think we want to advocate for companies and good experiences, and I think that when you do something like this where you're making the experience fun and more interesting and understandable, as Dom said, and sort of highlighting those highs, making them really jazzed about your product and your experience, I think naturally you're going to get people who want to advocate for you. So the first half was, does every new customer get invited to AdvocateHub to onboard? At Influitive, we do invite all the administrators, but what do you guys do, Dom?
Yeah, so for every new customer, so I'll answer that as simplistically as possible. So every B2B customer, the business-to-business customer, so every corporate customer of ours will get the welcome email with the invitation to join the Influitive onboarding tracks. So the answer to that part is yes. And we have a whole other segment of business, which is consumers. So just somebody at home would rather send things for electronic signature. So we're going to push this out to them as well. So it is trending towards every single customer, whether it be B2B or B2C, is going to have the opportunity to go through the onboarding track.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So Mary would like to know, can you talk a little bit more about the Salesforce aspects? You mentioned that the customer status changes in Salesforce as the onboarding takes place. How is this accomplished?
Yeah, this is a really good question. And for me, that was a deal breaker if that wasn't able to happen. So what we do is, as you're aware, there's the challenges within the Influitive environment, and you can categorize the challenges by the type. So you can assign the type of challenge to the challenge, whatever challenge you want to assign or name it. So we are able to push those back into Salesforce at the contact level. So when a new customer signs up, there's typically only one contact, and for us, we have a checkbox next to an account admin, which is called a critical contact, is what we named it. So the first contact for a new customer is by default going to be a critical contact, which means that they're going to be the recipient of the welcome email, which means they're going to get that invitation URL to the Influitive environment. As they progress through the Influitive challenges, each challenge they complete, we track or we record that challenge type completion on the contact level. So if Dave is the account admin, he's done 5 onboarding Tier 1 challenges, we're going to have a record of that on the contact record. And so then we go, okay, well, what we've defined is we want, when there's one onboarding Tier 1 challenge recorded for that contact, we're going to flag that. We're going to advance it from onboarding start to onboarding Tier 1. And so when they've completed 3 onboarding Tier 2 challenges, we're going to advance it from onboarding Tier 1 to onboarding Tier 2. And when they've completed 3 more of those, we're going to advance to onboarding Tier 3. At onboarding Tier 3 status, what we're going to do then is a logic check to see how many agreements they've sent. And if the agreement sent is greater than 10 and they're onboarding Tier 3, we're going to advance them to active status as a customer. And that's going to trigger that transition email from onboarding to the CSM. So that transition email is actually sent from the CSM, that automated through Salesforce, introducing themselves and making sure that they have all the contact information and are enabled to continue using the solution as they want. And within the welcome emails, or the transition email, there's the time trade link for the CSM so that the customer can schedule time with the CSM to touch base again if they wanted. So that's at a high level how we're using that aspect of Salesforce, of data being pushed back into Salesforce to trigger automated emails and logic checks and status advancements for each customer.
Awesome. Okay, so our next question says, how important is it to have it integrated with your product, SaaS? So I think what you mean here, Renee, is like how important is sort of this onboarding experience, how important is it to have this AdvocateHub onboarding integrated within your product? Dom, to what extent, would you say that you're sort of integrated with your product?
No, I would not say that we're integrated with our product. I would. Some of the challenges link back to our product as an account admin to enable them to do some of the configurations. So I wouldn't say we're integrated with the product. I would say we're closely aligned with it, very closely aligned.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, with Influitive VIP, we're obviously very integrated, but I mean, I think that it would work well, certainly from understanding the Adobe EchoSign example, I think it works well without it being closely integrated. Okay, sorry. So I have a question in here from Kimberly saying, how can we get a better experience for what EchoSign is like?
Everybody can have a free account. EchoSign.com, sign up for a free account, and you could send agreements 5 a month for free, getting documents signed electronically. And maybe if your company could be an EchoSign customer, I would reach out to, oh boy, there's usually no one real solid answer for who owns EchoSign. If it depends on how you guys, or if you are a customer, how you're using EchoSign. Heather, if you want, you can definitely distribute my email, and I'd be happy to engage one-on-one offline with anybody to check if you're a customer. Sure. And help you set up a free account and answer any other supplemental questions you guys may have come up with post this.
Yeah, for sure. When I send out the email tomorrow with the slides and everything and the recording, I will definitely be sure to include your email in that. That's very generous of you. Okay, I don't see any more questions here. Dom, did you have anything else you wanted to add in?
No, the more and more you guys look at the onboarding process, I hope if it's not already one of the most critical aspects of the customer's life cycle, that you guys bump it to that, as it's a big indicator how happy they're going to be beyond, if you're a SaaS business, how happy they're going to be for year 2, 3, 4, 5. So onboarding is massively critical, and take a good hard look at how you guys are doing it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dom. Thank you, everyone, for attending this class, for coming out and joining us. Dom, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day. Dom is actually currently at the Gainsight Pulse Conference in San Francisco, so I know that's a really popular, fun event, and I really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to join us for this and share your insights. Everyone who signed in and joined us for the class, thank you so much. We always really appreciate having everyone stop in and do some learning with us. So we will send you today or tomorrow the recording of the class, copies of the slides, Dom's email address, so you can reach out to him if you'd like. And yeah, thank you very much. And that is everything. Class adjourned.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you, Heather.
No, thank you.